Roll call, please.
Alderman Cone.
Present.
Alderman Moran.
Here.
Commissioner Banton.
Present.
Commissioner Bradley.
Present.
Commissioner Peoples.
Present.
Commissioner Goodman. Commissioner Keong.
Present.
Chair Strother.
Present.
And you have a quorum of 7.
All right. Thank you very much. Again, to the commission, that's my tardiness in this case. With that, the first order of business is the approval of the minutes. Everybody should have received their packets. I'll motion for minute approval.
So moved. Bradley.
It is moved by Bradley. Do I have a second?
Second, Alderman Cone.
Second by Alderman Cone. Call for vote, please.
Alderman Cone.
Aye.
Alderman Narayan.
Abstain.
Commissioner Banton.
Abstain.
Commissioner Bradley.
Aye.
Commissioner Peoples.
Aye.
Commissioner Goodman. Commissioner Keong.
Abstain.
Chair Strother.
Aye.
What was that, Chair Strother?
Aye.
Okay. And the motion passes with 4 voting aye and 3 abstentions.
Thank you very much. Forgive the hecticness of this all right now. With that, on the agenda, all of them are basically blind items. The first one is going to be presented by Jonathan. Let me back up. First off, welcome Alderman Narayan and Alderman Young to the board, to the commission. Hopefully, your time here is pleasant and not troublesome. And let today not be an indication of that typically. With that, the first item of business is Jonathan. They will all seem to appear the same, with the exception of the addresses, I think. Jonathan.
Well, good evening, Chair, and thank you. And welcome back, everybody. And thank you for joining us this evening to a Thursday night, not our normal Wednesday traditional evening Planning Commission night, but just for one night only, a Thursday night Planning Commission. I would also just give a special welcome again, as the chair noted, to Grace with the Mayor's Office, who's the Senior Strategic Initiatives Manager, and also Alderman Narayan of the 24th Ward. So just welcome to the Planning Commission. The first item on the agenda is a redevelopment plan and a blighting study for a project that consists of a 31-acre area in the Carr Square neighborhood. It's generally bounded by Cass Avenue on the north, 14th Street on the east, O'Fallon Street on the west. On the west is Hogan Street, and O'Fallon Street on the south. And this is known as the Preservation Square residential area. And the developer, McCormick Baron Salazar, is looking to develop in a 4-phase, over a 4-phase development, to redevelop this being either a renovation or new construction of different units. Next slide. This area also, just to note a few other projects going on in the area. Prodigo is the site is to the west, along with the NGA, which is under construction, along with to the east on the right side of the screen. That star there is the Greenleaf Market, along with the entrance to the Stan Musial Veterans Memorial Bridge. In looking at redevelopment plans and blighting studies, the role of PDA is to look at the review of compliance with the comprehensive plan of the city. In this case, we look at either the neighborhood plans, and if they have one adopted by the Planning Commission, and also the strategic land use plan of the city of St. Louis, the SLOOP. In this case, this area has been designated as a neighborhood preservation area, where it looks, generally speaking, to preserve what's currently there, which is residential units along with amenities such as a pool and other things like that. Well, it was there before. Right now, currently, it's under construction. Next slide, please. But generally speaking, that area is meant to serve more residential and corner commercial spots by the sloop. And looking at the plan, the neighborhood plan that was adopted by the Planning Commission, a plan for the neighborhoods of the 5th Ward. The plan at the time, that's about a 20-year-old plan, but it called for no recommendations for the area because it was a development. At the time, it was housing, it was fine to preserve, so there are no recommendations. But 20 years later, now there are recommendations to replace the housing and to provide new housing, updated housing. Here is the phasing plan for the Preservation Square redevelopment. You could see in phase 1 has commenced, and actually some properties have already, if you saw the grand opening earlier, that now they're grand opening at least for some of the units in phase 1. Phase 2 commencement of construction has commenced as well. I would note though, in terms of, well, if there are people there, why is it being blighted? We do look at blighting as an area as a whole. Also, I would note that while some units are under construction, that's not a complete unit and there aren't any occupants, on that land. No one can occupy that land because it's unoccupiable at this point anyway. So that's why we look at the area as a whole, just to kind of understand where they're at today and why this could still be considered, blighting. Next slide, please. We'd like to give you a tour of the area, starting with the northeast at the top right corner there, where Downcast Avenue, on the north side, you could see different either occupied or vacant commercial or vacant land. Next slide. To the east, along 14th Street, you see the existing Preservation Square on the left side. And the right side, you see a salvage yard with, well, behind there's a salvage yard, but there's a big long fence around it. Next slide. And this is just a picture of what was existing before raised, multifamily residential. Next slide. And this is a picture to the south of Preservation Square, which you see different residential services and a basketball court. Next slide. And this here is actually looking further down Cass Avenue, where you could see on the right side the under construction Preservation Square. And actually at this point, some of those might have been completed. And on the left side of the screen, on the north side of Cass, you could see the existing residential, and that's a separate, different development, by the way. In review of this redevelopment planning blighting study for Cass Avenue, 14th Street, O'Fallon Street, and Hogan Street, PDA finds the area to be declared blighted and finds the proposed blighting study and redevelopment plan in compliance with the neighborhood preservation area of the sloop and also a plan for the neighborhoods of the 5th Ward. And PDA does recommend approval for this blighting study and redevelopment plan. I am happy to answer any questions or comments the commission may have at this point.
All right, thank you, Jonathan. As the commissioners know, for those that are new, I simply go through the roll, allow everybody an opportunity to ask questions, then entertain a motion point. So beginning with Alderman Cone, any questions? I'll pass.
No, I do. Sorry, trying to find the mute button here, Mr. Chair. Thank you. Jonathan, I'm curious. So with the new houses that are being built over there, what's the expected lifespan of them?
I would have to defer to the developer on that question.
Are they available?
And I believe if.
I would probably say 30 years, Alderman.
And who's speaking?
Emily.
Oh, sorry. This is Emily Bernstein with McCormick Barron.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure thing.
Any
Okay.
other questions?
It's pretty frustrating, especially. So, what's the long-term plan for these homes?
Can you clarify your question?
So I presume are they're going to be owner occupied? Are they going to be rented? If they're going to be rented, like who's going to be renting them? Who's
Oh,
going to be the
sure.
long-term owner of them?
Sure. No problem. It's 100% rental. This is a redevelopment of the existing O'Fallon 123 and O'Fallon 1A properties. Preservation Square is the housing redevelopment focus of the Choice Neighborhood Grant that the city of St. Louis was awarded in 2016. It's a mixed income development. It was built mixed income in the early 80s and will remain mixed income. There's a mix of market rate housing, which I would really just call unrestricted housing, light tech housing, some of which has additional restrictions from other sources of funds. And there are also units on property with project-based Section 8 subsidy. So it will remain a mixed income property throughout the lifespan of the redevelopment.
Was McCormick Barron the original developer of the site?
Yes, in the early 80s.
So, I mean, it's been about 40 years, and probably when these were built 40 years ago, they were built with a 30 to maybe 50-year lifespan on them. And here we are, you know, basically tearing down, rebuilding, renovating, you know, these, you know, apartments essentially. I just wish we could be a little bit more thoughtful about how we're doing this, because there are environmental impacts to this type of construction style. It's frustrating, but you know, obviously there's a great need for, you know, housing in this area. Be nice if we were doing it outside of this footprint and expanding the footprint than just kind of going back in circles in the same, you know, somewhat small footprint that we're talking about here. But I don't have any other questions at this time.
All right, and there will be others. Alderman Ray, I'm sorry, Narayan.
No worries. No questions on this one right now. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing here. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Banton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A couple of questions. First for Jonathan and/or the developer. Has the site plan changed at all, or plan for the redevelopment changed since this came to the Planning Commission a few years ago?
It has changed. Yeah, the biggest change is probably the change not in the phase 1 or the 2 phases that are under construction, which we're calling 2A and 2B, but the future proposed phases, which were identified as phases 3 and 4. We just submitted for tax credits to MHDC for phase 4, and the location of that is actually a smaller sort of like chunk. If you want to go to the site plan, I can show you, but the future phases basically proposed the layout has changed. So where you see where it says phase 3 in red.
Yeah.
So just that northernmost block between 14th and 16th and Cass and Cochran, that is the proposed phase 4. And then part of what you see in yellow is actually already under construction. So the middle block that's shown in red, and then the eastern side of that yellow block will be the final phase, what we're calling phase 5.
Are the all the streets going to be reopened as sort of shown in this site plan on the screen, or has that changed as well?
They were initially programmed to all be opened. We've been in conversations with the aldermen and the community about that. There's a lot of heavy resistance to opening up the streets at O'Fallon. So all the streets are currently programmed to be opened for sure, with some possibility of the openings at O'Fallon remaining with like the pots potentially.
Okay. I think this is a great project, and I wish we were able to get it passed when it first came to us a few years ago. Question, I guess for Jonathan or maybe even David. Does the city normally, I can't seem to recall, but does the city normally pass blighting studies for projects that are already under construction?
I couldn't say, I haven't been here that long or haven't researched the history of the city in doing so, I would say, but I could just speak to this particular case. Usually since I've been here, it's not this far along in the process. However, still with this particular area, as a project as a whole, it might be under construction with some foundations in the ground, but that's not a house. So it's technically, if it's under construction, it's technically still kind of like a blighted area because there's no if it's meant to be residential and you can't occupy it, it's unoccupiable. So that's where, no, traditionally, in my experience being here, but
Yeah,
And
I mean,
this is, oh, sorry.
go ahead.
no, I'm sorry. That was
No, I see. This is David. Yeah, I would just observe that to the extent that the project is not complete and there's no guarantee that it could be completed at this time, that it is actually a blighted site until it is done and the occupancy permit has been issued. But I'd also note that it commenced at the LCRA a further back period, and you're reviewing the LCRA's findings. So part of the challenge here is the slow process. Once it gets going, that it may be blighted and then processes begin, but it may not be as blighted. But the gist of it is, unless the project is completed, it is still arguably legally blighted, and that is why it is proceeding at this time.
Yeah, I mean, it just seems a little dubious to me, and I think it's a great project. I have no doubt that the area was blighted before construction commenced, but to say something is blighted because it's under construction and there are vacant houses because it's under construction seems questionable to me. Also, for the purpose of, getting the project to move forward. The project is substantially moving forward already without having this redevelopment agreement in place. So it seems a little questionable to me.
I can add something if that's helpful. It's sort of just adding on, but I would just say that it's true that no operations have commenced for any of these phases. And I think as one of the previous aldermen who spoke was referring to, it's one thing to build these houses, it's another to manage them for decades in perpetuity. And so, when we look at the increase in the long-term operating expenses of a project like this, the tax abatement is incredibly important, especially for things like family supportive services, and then other things like, insurance costs or any of the long litany of lists of operating cost security.
This is Alderman Cohn as well, Jake. I just want to kind of piggyback off of what everyone is saying. Typically, we do not kind of follow a process where if work is commenced, we do a blighting study. But to answer your question, it has happened in the past, probably more frequently than I care to think about. But also with projects that involve the LIHTC tax credits, there's kind of a stipulation that those tax credits receive a tax abatement, which requires a blighting study to be conducted in order to receive the tax abatements for the project. So probably, I would imagine that's one of the reasons that this is before us today, is because it is a LIHTC project and therefore requires the tax abatement and therefore requires the blighting study to be done.
Thank you, Alderman. That is helpful. And no further questions from me.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Alderman Cohen. You are always a wealth of knowledge. Commissioner Boas, have you joined, or is she still out? Okay, Commissioner Bradley.
Could you quickly highlight any sustainability features of these buildings, LEED, anything along those lines?
Sure, yeah. So all the phases under construction will all be certified under the National Green Building Standard. The site was also built to LEED ND, Neighborhood Development Standards. So yeah, those are the big highlights, I guess.
Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Bradley. Commissioner People, any questions?
No, sir, I have no questions.
Thank you. I don't know, is Commissioner Goodman joined? Hearing no questions from Commissioner Goodman, Commissioner Young.
I do have one question. Emily, can you give us an update on the timeline now for construction?
Yeah, of course. So phase one is nearly complete. All buildings except one have certificates of occupancy. Residents have begun to move in. The phase 2A and 2B, which are shown currently in green, and then the western portion of that yellow area, those are under construction and contemplated to be complete in November of next year. And then, as I mentioned, we applied for tax credits for what we're calling phase 4, which is the top portion of that red area. So that would the financing, we would basically close on that next year, and then construction would commence after that. And then the final phase, we would apply for credits next fall for that phase. Is that helpful enough? Okay.
Yeah.
Sure.
Any further questions?
No, I think I'm good for now. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair has no questions at this point. Jonathan, if you would simply review the recommendation from the commission for the commission.
Oh, thank you for your questions. And yes, Chair. That the Planning Commission, staff recommends to the Planning Commission that the redevelopment plan for the Cass Avenue, 14th Street, O'Fallon Street, Hogan Street area to be declared blighted in compliance with the strategic land use plan and the plan for the neighborhoods of the Fifth Ward, and staff recommends approval of the blighting study and redevelopment plan.
Thank you very much. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Alderman Cone.
Second, Commissioner Banton.
Moved by Cone, second by Commissioner Benton. Call for vote, please.
Alderman Cone,
Aye.
Alderman Narayan,
Aye.
Commissioner Banton,
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley,
Aye.
Commissioner Peoples,
Aye.
Commissioner Keung,
Aye.
Chair Strother.
Aye.
And the motion passes with all present voting aye.
Okay, thank you very much. Just for clarification, Commissioner Young, is it Keung or Young?
You could like have it with both if you said it together. It's Kyung. So you don't say the E part of it, but you do still say the K.
Thank you very much. I simply wanted to be respectful of that.
No,
Okay,
I appreciate it. Thank you.
The second item is number 21 I think Alexa will be presenting this one. Yep, there she is.
Here I am. Good evening, Planning Commissioners. Nice to see everyone here this evening. So next we do have a redevelopment plan for review in the downtown west neighborhood that is approximately 3 acres in size and located in the 6th and 19th ward. The site consists of various uses such as commercial buildings and vacant lots, and the prospective developer is AHM Group, which aims to renovate and construct new infill in the area. Broadly, the area is located, next slide. Thank you. Broadly, this area is located just north of the MLA Stadium and also near other redevelopment plans that were recently approved by the commission, such as a new mixed-use residential building on Washington Ave, and then also the renovation of the Butler Brothers building on 17th and Olive. Next slide, please. More closely, we see that the area consists of surface parking lots and 4 buildings, 3 that will be renovated. Next slide. Thank you. The following images are those that were provided by the developer and will show renderings of the 5 projects that will amount to approximately 475 units, 25,000 to 30,000 square feet of retail and commercial space. And the first project, which is the next slide, will be located at 2011 to 23 Locust Street and will be a newly constructed 29-story building made of mass timber with first floor retail. The second project is the renovation of the Lambert building into flexible office space. Project number 3 will renovate the 2 buildings there into 40 to 45 units, and these will be included as affordable workforce apartments. Next project number 4 will be newly constructed residential building with possible first floor retail and commercial uses. And then lastly, the 5th project at this project site will be the new construction of housing and would include approximately 100 units, and it will encompass the whole 2100 block of Washington Ave. So the redevelopment area is located in the design downtown neighborhood plan boundaries, and one of the goals is to encourage new housing by diversifying housing types and target areas that you see there. And it also includes farm-based measures to activate street frontages. Given the scope of the proposed project within this redevelopment area, staff does find that it is in compliance with the goals of the neighborhood plan. Furthermore, the area is located in a specialty mixed-use area, which is intended that a unique mix of uses be preserved and developed. Excuse me. So lastly, just to provide a little more context to the uses surrounding the site, I will just quickly walk you through the next slides. So this is just east of the redevelopment site, and this is mixed-use buildings and the Pepper Lounge, if you're familiar with that place. Southwest is the Schlafly Tap Room. Oh, next slide. Then west is a residential building that includes an event venue on the first floor and then lofts on the subsequent floors. Also west is a commercial office building home to Twain Financial Partners. Next slide. And then northeast of the redevelopment site is the Majestic Stove, which are residential lofts. And then also east is another 8-story building that includes lofts. Here's the next building. All right. So in summary, PDA staff does recommend that the redevelopment area be declared blighted, is in conformance with the Sloop Specialty Mixed Use Area and also the Design Downtown Neighborhood Plan. And we recommend approval of this blighting study and redevelopment plan. I am happy to answer any questions, and also we should have Brian Pratt on the line, who is a developer for this site.
All right. Thank you, Alexa. With that, again, simply go, Alderman Cohn, any questions?
Yeah, so has this been before LCRA for any type of tax incentives?
Yes.
And what are the requested tax incentives versus the, what are the requested tax incentives?
Is anyone on the line from LCRA? Or I think Brian Pratt is, who I don't recall off the top of my head at the moment.
Zach Wilson from LCRA is on the line.
Hi, Zach.
So I'm in an Uber in New York City, so I apologize. It has been from the LCRA committee. We approved up to 10 years at 90%. Each project will come back to the board and be analyzed case by case in the future.
Okay, thanks for that, Zach. I thought you were out of town and not going to be on the meeting tonight, so glad to see you. Thanks for joining us, and thanks for the clarification. I am also wondering, is there a breakdown of the development and how it's going to be developed in terms of the residential units?
I will defer to Brian Pratt for that. Who's on the line?
Yeah, Brian Pratt with HM, principal of the HM Group. So we have a combination of both new construction residential units and the adaptive reuse of a historic building for residential units. I'll sort of walk through the phases briefly. So phase 1 was the high-rise tower. That will be approximately 270 to 280 total units, a combination of 1, 2, and 3 bedrooms. As mentioned, we'll have first floor commercial retail, as well as an 8th floor restaurant amenity space. And the tower itself will be housed on top of a structured parking garage of 350 some odd spaces. This is about a 135 million investment. It is using mass timber, which is a highly sustainable construction approach. It's been widely used in Europe. It's being used on the coast and starting to make its way into the Midwest, where we're sort of benchmarking this project against Cent and Milwaukee as a comparison. Project number 2 is solely office. And again, we're using a historic adaptive reuse of that project, so no residential on that one. Project 3 is combining the 2 buildings at 2109 and 2115 Locust. Those are actually already joined internally. We would use historic tax credits as well as the city's tax abatement support and our private capitalization to put a combination of workforce and affordable housing units into this building. Approximately 44 units right now we have programmed for that project. The project 4 is a ground up project. And we're looking at somewhere around 55 to 60 units. We're still sort of working out the final layouts on that project. This too would have some first floor retail and commercial along Locust. Again, trying to be very sensitive to the street and future activity and draw commercial activity as well. And then the final project is project 5, and that would be somewhere between 100 to 110 units. We would have first floor commercial space along Washington Avenue, and then a parking structure that is close to 400 parking spaces. And I want to touch briefly on that. I think one of the challenges in downtown West historically has been individual buildings don't have adequate parking that is controlled or available for redevelopment. So the incentive to redevelop in this part of town is that people can't park their buildings because of the disparate ownership. So we've been fortunate to assemble this 3+ acres, and this parking structure will, in essence, allow us to renovate the 2 existing historic buildings and build these ground-up apartments and provide the adequate parking necessary to achieve those goals, and frankly, add the type of density that this part of town should have, and that the plans adopted by the city have called out for as a mixed-use environment.
Yeah, these are very exciting. I saw some blog posts about them not too long ago. I am just kind of, I guess where I was going with that question, what is the person? So are these all apartments, or are there for sale condos, and the breakdown between 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units? What's the percentage of each?
Okay. I'll take the easy one first, Alderman. These are all rental, no for sale condos in any of the buildings. I'm going to use, I would say that we're probably trending close to 80 to 85% 1 beds or 1 pluses. Another 10% of those would be in the 2 bed range, and then about 5% would be in the 3 bed plus range. Those 3 beds are, we will have some affordable units targeted for 3 beds, as well as some of the high-rise units would be targeted for 3 beds.
Okay. And then from the affordable perspective, I think people often conflate affordable and workforce housing. Workforce housing is not necessarily affordable. It has a higher threshold in terms of salaries and requirements there when you're talking about workforce housing. So is this affordable housing, or is it workforce housing?
Yeah, so we'll have traditional market rates, so not income targeted, and then we will have workforce, which is an 80% AMI, and while not traditional, affordable does put a ceiling, if you will, on the rent that can be charged for. And then our description of affordable in this case are targeted for 60% AMI. So traditional 60% AMI units, we would set aside a number of units for that 60% AMI category.
Okay. Do you know the percentage of units by chance?
In the existing building, we're close to 35% of the units. On the ground up, the high rise will be fully market rate, and we'll be addressing affordability through a contribution to the city's affordable housing trust or wherever directed to promote affordable housing in other parts of the city. Projects 4 and 5, we're looking to target somewhere between 10 to 12% of the total units as 60% AMI units.
Okay, thank you. The last question I have, and it's not really related to the blighting per se, but the first project, the tower, the timber project. I'm just curious, have you all, are there any concerns with respect to fire safety and that with the high rise? And I'm just not sure if the St. Louis City Fire Department is equipped to handle a fire. I mean, this would be the first and largest, timber building in Missouri, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm just curious if there's been any conversations with the fire department as to whether or not they're equipped to deal with fire safety in the event that, hopefully the non-event, but in the event that something happens in the building.
Yeah, good question. So, our architect designed the Ascent in Milwaukee. There are construction processes, for example, the core of the building, elevator, fire stair, etc., will not be constructed with mass timber. I think the best way to describe it is approximately 50% of the unit will actually have exposed mass timber, whereas other portions of the unit will have more traditional fire prevention materials. And then there has been ample testing done about the safety of mass timber itself as a fire retardant because of the heft of the timbers themselves. We are in conversation with the building division about the technology and providing them with studies that demonstrate the life safety issues, and we'll be working through those questions during our design process.
Okay, thank you. That's all the questions I have. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Alderman Brett.
No question, just a quick comment. Looking at the tower at 2011 Locust, I'm just happy to see that people want to build buildings that look like that. We really moved away from it, and I think it looks pretty cool. So looking forward to it. Thanks.
Thank you. Commissioner Jake.
A couple of questions for planning staff. This zoning is under Central Business District, correct, for this entire area?
Correct.
And is there, I don't think there is, but correct me if I'm wrong, do you know if there's anything in that zoning section or in our zoning code that regulates the amount of glazing or fenestration or ground floor uses?
I don't know off the top of my hand, but I will, Jonathan's actually working on that stuff, so I will let him answer that. Working on the current project.
Thank you, Alexa. And before I answer that, just to make sure, is there any zoning staff on? Just so I'll give them the chance first. No zoning staff.
Not here.
Yeah, so in the I district downtown, it talks about a mix of uses that are allowed. So I don't think regarding if it needs to be ground floor residential or ground floor commercial today, there's any restrictions for that.
So theoretically, you could build a new parking garage and not have any active uses on the ground floor under this zoning code or any new building.
Under the current zoning code, that would be correct, I believe. Oh, yes, you could.
Have we added that stipulation to any redevelopment agreements for past projects? Do you know?
I would not, I'm not sure coming from the planning department, but for LCRA, I'm not sure what exactly is in their plan on urban design principles, but I'm not sure on that. But from PDA's side, from the design downtown plan, they do go through a garage and parking study in the plan, and it is discussed it is encouraged that parking garages are kind of more minimized for more vibrant activities that would bring people out, like, commercial uses and stuff. So But so that is backed by the design downtown plan about that.
Brian, do you have any plans for ground floor retail in any of these projects, including in parking garage?
Yeah, so in project one with the parking garage here, we would, the section of the garage facing Locust and sort of the portico here, if you will, would have integration of first floor retail commercial space. The rear is St. Charles Street, which actually is a pretty narrow street. Almost feels more like an alley than a traditional city street. It's a little unusual, I think. But so the entrance exit, we would try to, for the garage, we try to put sort of back a house on that. So really the primary focus of the first floor here would be oriented towards Locust Street, and we do anticipate putting commercial space on the first floor of that garage so we don't create a massive of parking in sort of a dead zone. The parking structure on project 5, we're actually wrapping, the old wraps on the Washington Avenue side, and our intent there is also to put first floor retail along Washington versus residential even, so that we can keep this activated and again sort of be in line with the planning intent of the plans that are looking for first floor commercial activation in this part of town.
And Commissioner Banton, I would just add that I don't know exactly what's in the redeveloper agreement, but as planning staff, we have requested in these redevelopment plans that are related to those in downtown, that within the urban design standards, that it reflects having those active frontages and making sure that there's that ground floor, like we are strongly encouraging it, but you are correct in the sense that the zoning code doesn't necessarily lend to that being the case.
I see. So I'm sorry, just quickly scanning through the redevelopment agreement in the packet now. You're saying there is language in there that encourages that?
I would say I guess for me, the difference is the redevelopment plan versus the redevelopment agreement.
Oh, sorry.
Let me go to the page. It would be in the resolution packet, once you get to Exhibit B.
Mm-hmm.
Under Section 8, urban design objectives. There's the section, urban design objectives. Towards the end of that paragraph, it says the design downtown neighborhood plan and the setbacks, urban setbacks and stuff like that.
I see that.
So that's where it's at currently.
Great. Well, I think it is a very exciting multiple projects, and glad to see that the historic buildings are getting redeveloped and being kept as part of that. So did you say which are these are you starting off with? Did I miss that?
Yeah, I didn't. And it may be, we have historic tax credit applications pending at the state. So depending on the outcome of those or need to reapply, we hope to potentially start on one of those. And then the parking structure, obviously, the parking structure on project 5 is pretty critical to making some of the other projects on the block go. So would likely concentrate there. And then the tower, large project. And sort of unique materials, and so it's we'll take a little bit of time to get the design in place on that one.
Got it. Thank you. No further questions.
Thank you, Commissioner. Commissioner Rich.
Yeah, so I don't want to belabor the point. I just want to say great project. I really do want to echo that comment about reutilizing existing historical buildings, mixing those in with new. And I am very excited as an engineer about this mass timber structure. I watched a presentation on this, and it is, amazingly economical to build, sustainable. The fireproofing is also amazing. And I would recommend that anyone who has any questions on that, get with your architect and get the copy of the presentation of the one, I believe it's Milwaukee. It is amazing structure. I think it'd be great for our city. So outstanding job. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Denise.
I have no questions. I'm just excited about the project. Good work. Thank you.
Commissioner Grace.
Thank you. It's a question to the planning department. hypothetically, if any changes that happen through what's going on with the zoning changes with the I district, if projects like this don't hypothetically meet some of the new requirements, is it automatically grandfathered in because we approved it through these processes, or would they need to come back? This is a logistical question.
It's when they get the building permit.
Okay. Thank you. And no further questions.
Okay, Chair has no questions at this time. And with that, if you would, Alexa, recall a recap the recommendation, please.
So in summary, PDA staff recommends the redevelopment area to be declared blighted, is in conformance with the sloop and the design downtown STL neighborhood plan, and staff recommends approval of the proposed blighting study and redevelopment plan.
Okay, with that, I'd entertain a motion.
So moved, Alderman Cone.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to propose an amendment to the redevelopment agreement.
We are not, because we're not moving on the redevelopment agreement. We're only acting on the blighting plan. So I think unless David can clarify, we cannot propose a change to the development agreement when we're simply acting on the blighting report.
Correct. Yeah, I mean, I think Commissioner Banton may be actually referencing the redevelopment plan, but yeah, that is correct. There's no jurisdiction over the agreement.
So how do changes to that
actually
happen?
Before you? Yeah.
Does that come back to us?
The redevelopment agreement is something negotiated between LCRA and the developer. And like I said, I'm not sure that's what you're referring to because there is no redevelopment agreement as part of your package here.
So it's I'm sorry.
You're thinking of the plan.
The redevelopment plan, which is included in the packet, but not what we're voting on.
Right, we're voting on the blighting study for that plan, not the plan, if I'm correct, David.
I see what you're saying. Correct. Yeah, I think what Commissioner Banton is suggesting is that he would like to propose a proposed amendment to the plan.
Yes.
Does that help?
Is that allowable?
Is that
yes, we've done that before. It can be voted out, so along with accompanied by a recommendation to LCRA to make a modification.
Okay, I remove my motion then.
Okay, so how would that, David, please help me, how would that read?
Yeah, I think you've got a motion that hasn't been seconded, and so you have that hanging out there. I would say maybe somebody could second, and then you could discuss and then provide a potential modification.
Well, let me, would you like to hear what my proposed amendment is before someone seconds it?
Well, no, he's saying that either has to be seconded or the motion has to be withdrawn.
Right.
I think Alderman Cone did withdraw motion.
And forgive, I'm technically challenged today. So Alderman Cone, if you withdrew the motion, Commissioner Banton, would you like to make a motion with your amendment?
Yes, it's a small recommendation and amendment. I would like to add this language to the redevelopment plan, if I'm getting that term correct now, to the landscaping and urban design section, that new language be added that all street trees in a street well and not in a continuous tree lawn shall be provided with underground irrigation.
Are we in order, David?
As long as somebody has all those words, or the record is going to be clear on that. I did not write them all down. Hopefully someone has that.
Did anyone?
I could repeat
it'll be in the recording. It'll be in the recording. So, but yes,
okay.
And again, just to be clear, Commissioner Banton, you're making a motion to approve subject to that recommendation.
That is correct.
Okay. All right. Second, Alderman Cone.
Okay, it's been moved by Commissioner Banton with the addendum, seconded by Commissioner Cone. Call for vote.
Previous roll.
Call for previous roll. Any objections? Hearing no objections, it will be passed with the appropriate language modified as recommended by Commissioner Banton. We made it through 2 for 4 more. The second one is our new. It's welcome to the club. This is number 23-22.
Good evening. Okay, I'm Andrea Gottschalk, planner with PDA, and I am here to present the third Chapter 99 Blighting Study and Redevelopment Plan developed by LCRA for a site consisting of 3.2 acres in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood. The site is also in the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood plan area. The plan does not provide for the use of eminent domain. The plan recommends 15 years of tax abatement, with 10 years based on 95% and 5 years based on 50% of the assessed value of incremental improvements. And, okay, next slide. The site consists of the Metropolitan Village Apartments, which are managed by Folsom Housing Group, which provides elderly and disabled housing. One developer proposes to renovate 147 units, ranging from 1 to 2 bedrooms. Next, the site also includes 2 homes, which will be demolished for community green space and gardens for the residents. And those homes are on the left side of that top photo. The site includes neighborhood development and neighborhood preservation areas of the strategic land use plan. Okay, next. And so we can have questions. I think Eric McMahon from Select Development LLC is here to answer questions.
I am here. Thank you.
I'm sorry, what?
Can you hear me?
Okay, are you finished with the presentation, Andrea?
Yes, sir.
Oh, okay. All right, with that, and you said Eric is on as a representative?
Yes, I am here. Can you hear me?
Okay, thank you very much. With that,
Yep.
Alderman, any questions? Alderman Cohen, any questions? Okay. Alderman Narayan?
No questions at this time. Thank you.
Alderman, Commissioner Banton?
I'm sorry, just some clarification on what the project is. Is it just renovating the large building?
Yes, it's a 147 unit high rise elderly building that has a HAP contract, Section 8 on 100% of the units. We are doing a renovation of all the units, you know, all new flooring, all new cabinetry, and then on the exterior, all new windows, you know, energy upgrades, redoing the parking lot, adding signage, new landscaping, more site light, and then also there's some derelict buildings on the Delmar side that would come down that are basically falling down already and be utilized for community space for the property.
It looks like
site.
It looks like there's an area north of Franklin Avenue there that is vacant currently. Is there any plans for that portion of the site?
Yes, we are looking to do, so the partner on the project is a nonprofit. We are looking to build a parking lot for visitors for the building, because right now the parking lot for the building on the south side is really tight and it barely fits all the residents. So when they have visitors or guests, it's hard to park and you know, get around on that side. It's a very, very tight site.
There's no closing of the streets to accommodate that, right? You're just building on the current lots.
Correct. Yeah. We're building, you know, a porte cochere off the front, off the Franklin side that just comes to the street, but no street alterations, just to give a covered walkway for part of the entrance, but that's all.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks. No further questions.
Thank you. Just checking to see Commissioner Boaz if you're on. If not, Commissioner Bradley.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Peoples.
No questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Goodman, if you're on. All right. Okay, Young?
No question. Thank you.
Thank you. No question from the chair. With that, I'll Andrea, if you would review the recommendation, please.
Okay.
Before you do, I'm sorry, let me ask you one question. When was the original remodel of this building?
There was a renovation approximately 16 years ago that replaced stacks and some interiors of the units and plumbing. This renovation will, replace windows, all new roofs. So just by nature of the low-income tax credit program, and the limited resources, a renovation was done, 15, 16 years ago. This renovation would kind of extend the life of the building and upgrade the interiors, but also add other items that are now at the end of their useful life.
And the budget and your budget for this?
For construction, we are just shy of $10 million.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, I'm sorry, Andrew, if you go ahead.
No problem. That's fine. I have that previous action was passed as ordinance 67436 on February 7th, 2007, Planning Commission meeting. The
Right,
renovations. Sorry.
and review the recommendation from the commission.
Yes. Okay, the proposed blighting and redevelopment plan is in conformity with the strategic land use plan as well as the Jeff Vanderloo neighborhood plan, and PDA staff recommends approval of the proposed blighting and redevelopment plan.
All right, thank you for that. I'll entertain a motion.
So moved, Commissioner Banton.
Second, Bradley.
Second.
Okay, I have a second from Bradley, moved by Commissioner Banton, second by Commissioner Bradley. With that, call for vote, please.
Alderman Cone. Alderman Narayan.
Aye.
Commissioner Banton.
Aye.
Commissioner Bradley.
Aye.
Commissioner Peoples.
Aye.
Commissioner Keung.
Aye.
Chair Strother.
Aye.
Alderman Cone.
I think in this case, we've lost our quorum if Alderman Cone is not on. With that, if we have lost the quorum, we cannot continue the vote. What I would like to do is table this till the next meeting then. And David, let me clarify with you.
Yeah, I'm just looking to see, I do not see Alderman Cone present at this time.
Yeah, and I said, and I'm challenged.
Unless he's the phone number.
No, I think the phone number was Eric. Yeah. Okay.
So yeah, you require a quorum of 7.
Right. With that, so I just simply table the motion at this point to the next meeting till we have a quorum?
As you have lost your quorum, you have no choice and can't conduct any further business.
Okay, we can't even go through the reviews of the other.
You can perhaps discuss them, but you really can't go forward in any substantive way.
Right. I'm saying.
I mean, when I say discuss, perhaps you could have a presentation, but you actually can't do anything beyond that.
Yeah, we can't take any motions except we can't review them. But once we come back, can we just simply take the actions on them without a quorum, with the quorum?
I would say you could have the presentations. I don't know that the commissioners could really get into any substance.
Right. All right. With that, then, with the loss of a quorum, and we do have another meeting coming up within, I think, 2 weeks. Am I correct?
Yeah. What is it? October 12th? I think. I'm not sure.
Okay.
October
Uh,
12th is scheduled.
All right. What I'd like to do, and just in case, Jonathan, can you go ahead and make your presentation? That way we'll at least have the presentation done since we're here. At that point, we can follow, because who knows, Alderman Cone might come back in. I called and I could not take it, so I wonder if that was him at this point. So what we'll do is we'll have Jonathan make the presentation for 24-2 and simply hear the presentation.
Well, thank you, Chair. And I would be happy to, in case Alderman Cone does not reappear for this one, we could always, at the next meeting too, we could discuss any questions now and then have if we want a truncated presentation for those who weren't at the meeting, because I believe Commissioner Boaz will be back as well. So
Exactly.
just to give a quick one, but I'll go through this as well. But thank you for the time. This next redevelopment plan, which I do understand at this point, we do not have a quorum, so it's a discussionary topic at this point. It's a project 6.6 acres in the Wells Goodfellow neighborhood that calls for the renovation of 11 residential buildings to be apartments, and they're existing apartments today. The prospective developer, who is still Hillville LLC, is looking to do around 146 units. That does include 2 to 3 bedroom units. Next slide, please. And I apologize, that slide shouldn't say new construction, but I think the previous one did. The strategic land use plan designates this area as a neighborhood preservation area. It looks to seek to preserve what's there existing, including the what's there today as housing. Next slide, please. And now we'll take a tour around the area, starting with the entrance to the development. Here's the front gate, and you can see the parking lot and existing apartments. Next slide. This is just to the north of the site, where you can see the existing residential complex on the left side, and also the right side is different businesses. And this is just at the south of the area, just looking north. So you can see the development again on the left side, and right side there's a wall. Next slide. And here, just to the west of the site, there is residential housing just to the south, along with industrial on the right side or west along Hamilton. Next slide. And looking at the site still on the west side, but looking north, you have that light industrial, where you have that long gray wall going on the west side of Hamilton. And on the east side, you have not only the property, but also city-owned property. Next slide. And then just to the north of the site more, you have going up from Goodfellow, you do have more commercial as well. Slide. Just to note, there is a area just north of the site that is owned by the city, which was a temporary site for moving rubbish around. So, so the redevelopment plan does call for and contain landscaping and screening requirements, just so there's more of a barrier for that at this point. And also, so in looking at, usually don't always look at the zoning, or well, bring up the zoning, but in this particular case, so the current property today is zone J for industrial. And so is some of the surrounding, just to the north, to the east, and to the west. And just to the south, where those residential units of the houses were, that is zoned C or D. So what we're looking at doing on this particular property, as it has been residential and it continues to be residential, is to maybe consider zoning this to a use that is more in compliance with residential uses, because what the entitlements are under J could be many industrial uses that you wouldn't typically have available if you were in more of a H or A district, which are more residential. So there's only about 2 districts that really minimize residential, and that's the J district. in the K district, which just allows it if there's existing residential up to like 40% or something, then you're allowed to. But so in this case, while it is allowed in J, it's just the entitlements that exist along with J. And looking, usually we use zoning to protect the residents. So looking as a condition for a condition that a rezoning to a residential district is looked at. Next slide, please. And there is no neighborhood plan to cover in this that is adopted in this area. So staff and the recommendations that were not taken tonight would find the area to be declared blighted, and a redevelopment plan would be in conformance with the strategic land use plan for the neighborhood preservation area. But we also have a condition that a zoning change from J to a residential district. And that would conclude the presentation at this time. And I believe the developer is on the line as well.
All right. Thank you, Jonathan. I am not going to entertain questions or discussions, unfortunately. And I apologize to the developer. And I think it would be unfair because we will have some questions. And then if we come back with a quorum, those questions may be repeated or already have been answered. So that for the best use of all time, at this point, I'll simply say thank you. I do not see that any other alderman or commissioner has joined back in. So we still remain without a quorum, meaning we cannot take any action on anything presented to us at this point. So what I will do is I will table this, and once again, we'll come back. I have to make an abbreviated presentation at the next meeting, and we'll go back and take action on the previous item mentioned, number 5. We'll take action on number 6, 7, and 8, moving those to next meeting. The only thing I can do is say thank you for joining. Apologize for the inconvenience. And with that, I simply need a motion to close the meeting at this point.
So move.
Moved. Do I have a second?
Seconded.
It's moved and second. The meeting is adjourned at this point, and we will reassume on October the 10th. Michelle will send out an updated section and get us back to point. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.